is obviously aimed to close all the exits or to make it much, much harder for the normie person to buy Bitcoin. I think everyone that's been in the space for a while knows how to acquire non-KYC Bitcoin if they need to or if they want to, which I can wholeheartedly recommend you do, as long as it's still possible, because we don't know how long on-ramps like Bitcoin or RoboSats or how long will they exist. So use them now, but having to sign a message that confirms that I am the owner of an address is plain stupid, because why wouldn't I input an address that I not control? It doesn't make any sense. It's just, at this point, it's data hoarding, and the leaks are going to be fire, because all this data is going to be leaked at some point.
Hi there. I have a quick favor to ask. Over the past few months, this podcast has had several thousand returning viewers and listeners, but over 75% of you haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying what I'm doing and find my content valuable, consider subscribing on YouTube or following me on your favorite podcasting platform. If you're listening to this on Fountain app, then feel free to boost the show. It'll go a long way in helping the podcast grow and spreading the message about Bitcoin even further. I truly appreciate your support. Now let's dive into this episode. Welcome back to Your Bitcoin Story, the podcast where we dive into the lives and passions and innovations of those shaping the Bitcoin ecosystem. I'm your host, Gigi, and today we've got an exciting guest who's combining creativity, sovereignty, and open source innovation in a way that's sure to inspire you. Joining me today is none other than Printer from GobrrEstore. Printer describes himself as your friendly neighborhood no dealer and a centralized authority minimalist. And trust me, his story is as fascinating as it sounds. Through his GobrrEstore, Printer empowers sovereign individuals with 3D printing, custom 3D designs, and open source hardware solutions. Whether you're getting started with your own node, tinkering with designs, or just curious about how 3D printing can amplify self-sovereignty, we're going to talk about this in this episode. Printer's journey, his philosophy on decentralization, and how he's using technology to create tools for a freer future. Printer, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hi, Gigi. Thanks for the absolutely stunning introduction. You're hired because you're actually pronouncing it right. The GoBrrr.
Nice. Thank you so much. And yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. We've actually interacted right before the New Year's. Thanks to you, I finally have my first BitAx set up and doing its own hashing, providing some more network difficulty. So I'm really happy with that. And thanks to you, you also included a nice little present for my birthday with some bundles with a stand and some other accessories. So first of all, thanks a lot for your generosity.
Oh, no worries. It's a pleasure to have brought a BitAx so far.
Yeah, no, of course. So I guess before maybe we'll touch upon BitAxes as well, as that's a hot topic since last year. But maybe we can kick it off. You can tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became the friendly neighborhood node dealer.
Okay, all right, I try. So about 3.5 years ago, I started a small online store where I mainly started selling SeedSigners and at the time Bitcoin nodes, which were built from Raspberry Pis. Mm-hmm. Mainly Raspberry Pis, but some others too. And this started out as a very fun project of mine, which obviously reflects in all of the shop, starting from the domain, which is not to be taken serious. And like everything in this shop is a meme. Check the color codes of all the colors we used. It was a really fun, nice side project, but then it grew and it grew and it started out being more work than my actual main job. So after 2 years, I quit that. And yeah, it has become my full-time job now. And this is very fulfilling because I actually managed to shove my two passions, which are Bitcoin and 3D printing, into one company, which is apparently bringing value to some of you or some customers because they keep coming back. And I love that. And yeah, that's how it all started out.
Amazing. I guess I did this unconventional. Usually I open the question with, where does your Bitcoin story started? I jumped straight into how did the GoBrrr come around? But maybe we can sidetrack a little bit before GoBrrr. Maybe you can share with us, how did your Bitcoin journey begin? How did you discover it? Where does that all start?
So like many others, I discovered Bitcoin fairly early, but failed to act upon that for a very, very long time. So I think my first contact with Bitcoin actually was 2014, 2015. The first transaction I did was actually a physical purchase. It was a purchase of a pair of Converse special edition shoes for my now wife, back then girlfriend. She wanted them, and they were a special edition, which was really, really hard to get. And I live in Austria, and we found one pair in her size. It was in the USA. And apparently the woman who was selling it wanted Bitcoin for that.
Wow.
Because I didn't have a PayPal account back then. I had no way to send her dollars. At this point, I never did an international bank transaction in my life. We were both not interested in that. So yeah, paid in Bitcoin. You can imagine that this was a rather expensive purchase at the time. But yeah, then that was really the only reason I bought Bitcoin back then. And then I ignored it for the coming 5, 6, 7 years before my interest sparked again, mainly because of some people we all know and miss, like Antonop. For me.
Yeah.
Antonop really kicked it off and orange pilled me so hard. And once I got into the space, I never got out again. I just dug deeper into the rabbit hole, and here I am.
I like to say the rabbit hole is a one-way street. Once you enter there, the door behind it just shuts closed and there's no reopening it again.
Yeah, it's not just one hole. That's the thing. You go down the rabbit hole and then you realize, oh, yeah, these canals or whatever they are splitting into many, many other rabbit holes, because just Bitcoin overlaps so many different things, different topics, from economics to whatever.
Yeah. No, for sure.
I can even find lots of similarities between Bitcoin and 3D printing. So you can expand that to where you want, to privacy, to IT, to Linux, to whatever you want.
No, of course. And going back to your purchase, you said in the 2014/15, when you were looking to get these custom Converse for your wife, and the seller in the US was accepting Bitcoin. How did you go about getting this Bitcoin? Was it easy? Was it straightforward? Or you were kind of wondering, what am I doing here? Did it seem all alien technology to you?
Yeah, of course I was wondering what the fuck I was doing here. I did not know. I mean, I was a bit IT, I would say, affin. Also, I knew a bit about tech and computers, but digital money was very new to me. And I remember that was the reason that I created my PayPal account back then, because there was a site that apparently sold Bitcoin via PayPal. But then I found out getting a PayPal account as an Austrian back then was hugely inconvenient, because it took a month until the letter came, and then I had to send a small transaction, and until that came, it was all done, because I found out I could buy Bitcoin in a kiosk, just like with these prepaid cards.
Yeah.
For the phone, you just bought one of those and could redeem it online. KYC free, no questions asked. So
amazing.
Much better than now, actually.
I was gonna say, like a decade ago, you could go to a kiosk, buy a prepaid, Bitcoin gift card. Where today it's much harder, and it feels like, especially in Europe, it's getting harder and harder every year now. Just as of 1 week ago, this ridiculously stupid fascist rule of travel rule came in, where you need to KYC wherever you're sending your Bitcoin to, give it names, addresses. And God knows what third parties collect that data, which is insane. What's your take on that, Printer?
Yeah, I'm kind of a privacy conscious person, as you
don't
might
say
see,
with that
because
mask.
of this thing in my face. Yeah. So, this is absolutely fucked up. Mica is obviously aimed to close all the exits, or to make it much, much harder for the normie person to buy Bitcoin. I think everyone that's been in the space for a while knows how to acquire non-KYC Bitcoin if they need to or if they want to, which I can wholeheartedly recommend you do, as long as it's still possible, because we don't know how long it will. We don't know how long on-ramps like Bitcoin or RoboSats or how long will they exist. So use them now, but having to sign a message that confirms that I am the owner of an address is plain stupid, because why wouldn't I input an address that I not control? It doesn't make any sense. It's just, at this point, it's data hoarding, and the leaks are going to be fire.
So,
because all this data is going to be leaked at some point.
Of course, like everything. I mean, just a few months ago, I think in December, November, the whole social security of every single American was leaked. It was hacked in, and that's like millions of, and that's much more than just a name and an address. It like includes everything in there. And it just happens over and over and over again. I guess the only thing that hasn't been hacked yet is the Bitcoin protocol. I think even if that's possible, we are light years away from that happening. But like, as you said, every database gets breached sooner or later. Some of them reveal it, some of them never reveal it. But yeah, it's just plain stupid how these honeypots just keep on building and building and building, and where we should be controlling our, identification and personal information, especially with also the GDPR rule, which came out a few years ago, which was sold to us as our personal data protection. But yet with GDPR, we need to prove everything, who we are, identity, and it's just it's an oxymoron, right? Like it's been done to protect us, yet we need to prove everything to everyone, who we are, why we're doing. It's just, I mean, I feel like Europe is going down a very slippery slope of becoming this true Orwellian world that, that was written in a book some 10 years ago. And now it's just slowly trickling. And to me, the scariest part is, going back to the MiCA and the travel rule, the majority of Europeans, nobody protested it. There was no public uproar about it. To be honest, it was on the contrary. When MiCA got introduced, people were routing, were like, oh, fantastic, we have regulations, it's legitimized, this, that. And I, from the beginning, was saying, whoa, guys, hold on to your guns. There's nothing happy to be about here about declaring your stuff. We are here building this sovereign, decentralized world, and then the old system is just tapping in to, smear it with KYC. There's nothing to be happy about. And here we are, start of 2025, and now with the travel rule, you need to be declaring the ownership of wallets where you're sending to, and in some cases, doing signing a signature from that wallet is just crazy, and nobody seems to care, which is the scariest part.
Yeah, like how should I word this correctly? Like, Europeans are really, really, really stoic in that regard. The French are maybe more used to revolution still, but the rest of us, I don't know what they're doing. But the problem is, the few of us can't go start a revolution because we're not enough at this point, and the rest is just too brainwashed to even recognize. But you could see the immediate stupid effects or negative effects of MiCA and this regulation like last year, or starting in October. Probably hundreds of thousands of people were shotgun KYC'd by Relay. Fuck you, Relay, by the way. Because this was really, I recommended Relay to so many people because it worked so well for many years without KYC or the KYC light. We all know. They know, but yeah, it was easy. It worked well enough. And then all those people got this email or this pop-up in their app that they have to KYC before they can use their wallet or before they can buy any more sets. And we lost Relay. Now we lost Pocket Bitcoin because they are MiCA regulated as well. So it's getting hard.
Yeah,
especially for newcomers who don't want to KYC, but yeah.
Well, I guess in Relay's case, I don't think they had a choice. And actually, hopefully Julian doesn't get offended, because Julian's coming on the show later this month, and I want to get his take and his kind of, response to everything that's happening on the regulatory basis, since Relay's kind of been a very popular, Bitcoin only exchange in Europe that's been growing vastly. And yeah, I think this is something that's out of their control. Just, my question is, how do we end this, draconian system of clamping down? I don't know. Like, to me personally, well, I left Europe earlier last year because I was done not just with Mika stuff, but just generally with all regulations, with all these taxations, with all this bureaucratic crap, even traditional banking, where I need to go to the bank every year and tell them how much money am I expecting to get, where am I expecting to get this money, where do I want to send it, or if I want to take out 5,000 euros from my bank account, they go, whoa, no, you can't. You need to first, explain what you need it for. And it's just like, what are you talking about? Like, these are my funds, but it seems like we have no control. We're just a number in their system. And yeah, I mean, apart from leaving Europe, but not everybody's ready to just pack up and go, especially people that have family and friends there. So, it's a big question mark. What will happen in the next decade with the European Union? And to me personally, I don't know how about you, Printer, but like I even see European Union coming to an end, as this big union which was built to like free trade and help out each other. It's kind of this big machine that's sucking out the energy of every country, and especially smaller countries, like the Bulgarias, the Romanias of it, but even the bigger ones like Germany, France, Italy, they're all getting strangled away, and people are just finding it harder and harder to live. So yeah, I don't know how long this can carry on for.
Hopefully you're right, and the EU is coming to an end. I may sound a bit radicalized now, but actually the first time I voted, I made a sign-on paper, was for joining the EU, because they sold us the dream so well, and I was just at voting age back then. And yeah, right now, as you said, it's pure communism mixed with lots of regulation and throttling all innovation. But I think we might get sidetracked here, but actually, because you mentioned Germany and getting squeezed dry, and it's the same with Austria. Like, we're a very small country and we're paying like the sixth highest amount of money to the EU. So once the countries which are financing all of this crap are sucked dry, mainly Germany, the EU will have to stop. We'll just have to, because there won't be any funds.
Quick interruption, folks, because your seed phrase deserves better than a napkin in your sock drawer. We partnered up with Stampseed, the legends of professional grade metal stamping tools. Their patented tools are made from solid titanium, the indestructible kind. You hammer your seed phrase letter by letter, so it's literally etched in stone. Well, titanium, but you get the idea. No loose pieces, no oops, my letter shifted around, and 0 points of failure. Perfect for wallets, multi-sig setups, or if you're planning to pass your Bitcoin empire to your kids. Mount it to a wall, stash it under a desk, or hide it like a treasure map. Use code BTCstory for a 15% off site-wide discount, because your seed phrase shouldn't be left to chance. Visit stampseed.com and order your personal stamping kit today. And now, let's get back to the episode. Yeah. Well, when the printer stops going brrr and just goes silent, then the music stops and we run out of chairs to sit down on, and then the house of cards collapses. So let's see when that will happen. But let's move the negativity out the way and go stick to the positive side. Thankfully, we have Bitcoin, right? Which is the main aspect of the show. And of course, our biggest hope in this crazy clown world that we found ourselves in. And specifically with you, Printer, with your passion for 3D printing, how does 3D printing empower people in Bitcoin on the self-sovereignty aspect?
I mean, not necessarily only in Bitcoin.
Generally.
3D printers are generally a tool for being much more sovereign than you've been before, even if you buy, I don't know, a 199 euro beginner machine, because you'll just notice things. You'll notice, okay, you need a small hook, or you need a small, I don't know, washer. Do you want to drive to the hardware store for that, or do you need to drive to the hardware store? No, you don't, actually, because you just print what you need, then you try, and it fits. And this moment is very, very special for many people who are getting into 3D printing, because next thing you know, you're sitting there learning CAD or using Tinkercad or whatever beginner-friendly CAD software, and you're designing mounts for things, you're repairing stuff around the house, and the hardware store is not seeing you again unless you really need something that's made out of metal that you can't print. At least for me, it was like that. And I know from a few other fellow DIYers that their houses are basically held together by 3D prints. Like
Wow.
my refrigerator would literally fall apart without 3D printed adapters, which are holding the door for years.
That's incredible.
And
so I have a question on, you mentioned like CAD and some of these like entry, softwares that you use to program the printability. How easy is it for like a non-techie to start printing out their own things? Is there like a steep learning curve, or it's pretty straightforward?
so right now it's pretty straightforward, I have to say. With all the advancements in how easy printers became to operate, it was a totally different story 5 years ago, because you really had to know everything by heart. But now the print profiles that come with the printers are really good. You just throw on a print and you don't even have to learn CAD, because there are millions of people, literal millions of people, who upload their designs for whatever they made for free to Printables, Thingiverse, whatever the site is called. There are many of them. We can just download the model you need, send it to your printer, and it will just replicate it. You take it off the build plate and use it.
And another aspect is it's not just saving you time to go over to the store and saving you petrol, and most importantly saving you time, but also paying these exuberant prices. I've seen recently, just the other day, someone posted on, I believe it was on X, where they said they saved themselves like $50 from buying a knob for their Bosch
knob.
The Bosch knob.
I've seen the tweet.
Yeah, and I was
that's
like,
the
that's amazing.
classic.
Like, cost them like 50 cents to print it instead of like $50.
Classic use case for 3D printer, absolutely. And bringing that back to Bitcoin, like Bitcoiners are tinkerers. Many of them build hardware, like BitAx, for example, but some are also mining with bigger machines, obviously. And we have seen that 3D printing comes in really handy, because when Bitmain brings out new miners, and each series has different dimensions, and you just need an adapter for your exhaust to route the hot air from the miner to wherever you want to put it. 3D printing will come in very handy, because you can just build the duct that you need and print it. And there's the thing, you can't manufacture this in any other form, because when you need one of these, when you try to injection mold it, you're going to pay $2K or $4K for a mold.
Wow.
And then you'll have to produce hundreds of them to eventually
break even.
Get that investment. Break even, but you won't be able to sell them.
Amazing.
There's many, many amazing things that 3D printing enables that is just hasn't been possible before.
No, I agree.
Create geometries which are just absolutely insane. They are just printed.
And how long does like how quickly do these things get printed? I mean, of course, it varies on complexity and size, but like it's only a matter of hours, right? It's not like it takes a day to print like a small fixture.
No, like take your BitAx stand for example, because you know how big that is. Will take about 2 hours if you print one of them.
Okay. Wow. So it's pretty fast as well. There's no like going online, ordering something and then waiting for like a week for it to arrive. Within a matter of a few hours, you have your piece at home ready done.
Absolutely. And then you find out it doesn't fit. Then you scale it up by 1%, print it again, and then it fits.
Nice.
And it's gorgeous.
Nice. What about the recycling aspect? Can you recycle the molds that you already done, or what happens to that? Or is that just waste?
3D printing doesn't effectively need a mold, because
I mean, not the mold, the actual like piece that you printed out. Let's say you printed out a knob and it doesn't fit. Can you like melt that down to reuse it again, or what happens to that?
It's hard. That's a dream of mine. And actually one of the things that I want to be able to achieve by the end of this year is recycling all of our failed or unsold or whatever 3D prints, because there's quite a lot of them by now, I have to say. So I have 3 big boxes full of stuff which needs recycling, and it's all PLA. But the thing is, the shredders to shred the prints down to the size where you could really remelt them into usable filament are insanely expensive right now. I have seen that a new product will be coming out later this year, which should make it much easier to recycle your own filament, or to recycle 3D prints and make your own filament. And that's a project.
Okay.
But this is hard. That's like end level.
Well, we progress in steps, right, printer? It's not like we go from level 1 to level 10 straight away. Just like 3D printing was very hard when it just started out, and now it's much more streamlined. So I'm sure with time, the recycling aspect will come in. and improve drastically too. Because I think that's another thing, like with waste, as you said, it's trial and error. It's not like you're gonna print out the perfect, knob piece that you need every time. So it would be nice to kind of recycle it.
That's true. I mean, there are lots of ways to recycle now, and I really don't feel bad about failed prints or something like this, because after all, most of the stuff I print is made from PLA, and PLA is made from cornstarch. So you need an industrial plant, but you can compost it. It's biodegradable. So we're not leaving like microplastics, which will be stored in our balls. So yeah.
I like
no
it.
worries about that.
I like it. So going actually back to your origin of getting started with 3D printing, can you tell us how did that happen? What sparked your interest and what was your first interaction with 3D printing?
Nicotine, actually.
Oh, wow.
I stopped smoking. I was a very, very strong smoker. I smoked about 2 packs a day for 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then I stopped and started vaping instead.
Mm-hmm.
And vaping was hugely interesting to me back then. And I learned a lot of stuff through it, like how batteries work, electricity, ohms, resistance, all of that. I didn't know shit about that before. And then it started that I wanted to create my own vaping device, like my own Akkuträger, like we say in German.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I bought the first 3D printer, to experiment with that. And then I learned CAD because I wanted to model it and I wanted to create the perfect vape. I never created it because I mostly stopped vaping by now. But yeah, we're on the other side. We're now at 12 printers.
Wow.
So yeah, I think it worked out in the end.
So you see there, listeners, nicotine's not always bad. It can pursue some positive things and life changes to your life. But yeah, in no way am I promoting any smoking. Stay healthy. But yeah, it's interesting to hear how
if you never started, don't know.
Yeah, true. Very true. Amazing. So I wanted to now touch upon one product that you sell on your store, which I'm very passionate about. And it's the only hardware wallet device, which is, of course, SeedSigner. And from what I take, there we go. You have it ready in front of you. Mine's stacked away and
a few more
in the closet. But yeah, I mean, SeedSigner, he was one of the early guests on the podcast, and I had him again. He was the first returning guest on the podcast end of last year. And he also said some fun things about you, Printer, with GoBrrr. He gave a nice shout out to you. So I wanted to hear how come, SeedSigner is the only device on there, and how did your relation, how did you meet SeedSigner and how did that story go?
I have to say, just for clarification, SeedSigner is not the only device.
Really?
In the shop by now. No, because at some point our customers just asked for us to stock hardware wallets, and so we did.
So that was my mistake, bad research.
We started out selling mostly or only SeedSigner for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, then when some hardware wallets started to make the Seed QR compatible, like the Blockstream Jade did and Foundation did with the Passport, then it made sense for us to stock them, because we also sell the QR plates, the steel plates.
Yeah.
Where you can punch your seed phrase, which has been converted to QR, into the steel. And yeah, if the other hardware wallets read them, it makes sense to stock them, because it's a compatible ecosystem at this point. But yeah, it started out with SeedSigner, and the passion is definitely with SeedSigner, because I can just relate to all of it. Like I was not early to Bitcoin, but I was early to SeedSigner. I can say that, because when I noticed that the UI was just like the user interface was a few lines of text. It was before Keith and anyone else jumped in to make it what it is now, like the most amazing Bitcoin signing device out there that you can build yourself for about, I don't know, $40 right now. As prices have come down again. And I think I just realized the potential immediately, kind of, because I was never a friend of hardware wallets which want to be plugged into my computer. I don't know. Maybe my computer is safe, but I don't think everyone's computer is safe if you have a virus on your computer, which will, I don't know, just dupe the address. When you copy paste it or something like that, you're pretty much fucked and can't do shit about it. The same thing applies to, I don't know, cold card with the micro SD. Not a fan of data transfer from a PC again. So the AGAP concept with only QR codes, it was immediately appealing to me. So I built one, and I happened to have 2 3D printers at the time. So I printed an enclosure, the enclosure SeedSigner designed, and posted it on Twitter, and took about a day until the first guy
Placed an
sent
order.
me a message. Hey, could you print one of these for me? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? Posted that I printed more of them, and yeah, that's basically really how the shop started, because people asked, could you print those for me? And then I printed them for them and thought, hey, this could be a service that people actually value. And I can tell you, I never intended to sell full kits at the time, but then COVID came and the chip shortage, and no one could acquire Raspberry Pis like anywhere, and I found some. So it made sense to stock them back then. Yeah, mainly selling DIY kits now, because you should build your SeedSigner yourself, obviously. Otherwise, it gets difficult and the value proposition is mainly lost. And I'm saying that as a seller who builds them. So you have to be transparent about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the start of a big, big love story. And also SeedSigner, the man, we have communicated a lot since then, because at some point I wasn't happy with the existing enclosure types and started to build my own. And then we worked together about a year of time until this was perfected, and until we got these little buttons.
Was that your
made from
design that you worked
CPU.
with Seed?
No.
No.
Let me just show you the correct one. That was
This one.
This one,
Okay.
the rug pill, and this was the first where we tried the buttons printed from flexible materials like GPU, and it worked so well it became the new standard, kind of. Yeah, that's how I got to know SeedSigner, the man, the person.
Amazing.
Very cool dude. We never met in person, but we're hopefully going to change that this year.
Well, yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. You know, I had no idea that due to SeedSigner, that's how GoBrrr started. That's a nice correlation to it. As you said, you know, posting out and seeing that people want the product, you know, started it all. And today you have so many products on the website. Anyone listening should definitely go to GoBrrr.me to check out all the products that are on offer. But yeah, going to SeedSigner, I also like, to me, it's my favorite signing device. It's my daily go-to driver. I personally really love the stateless aspect of it, which all other cold storage devices, they're all, in a sense, they're bashing SeedSigner because it doesn't have a security element. But to me, that's the beauty of it, that it doesn't have a security element, that it's stateless. But yes, some people just like to promote their own thing. And now, kind of in the last year or so, there's been so many battles between, especially from the NVK side with CoinKite and him, you know, bashing passionately SeedSigner, calling it just a Raspberry Pi device. I don't know, is he just doing it out of spite, or he's scared about the competition, or what's the tinkering behind it? But to be honest, I don't really care. It's more about giving the people the option of DIYing it, because as you said, nobody can verify that the supply chain of the cold hard wallet that you have at home hasn't been tampered with at some point of the production cycle. And if you just order the individual pieces, build it yourself, you can actually know for certain that individual pieces weren't tampered with, because they're not specifically designed for a cold storage device. So yeah, it's and at the same time, you know, why I love supporting SeedSigner is because, you know, it's not even a company where it has a CEO and everything. It's a driven, you know, community led, you know, people that have dedicated their time, passions to build something. It's the true created by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. You know, there's some companies that use that saying on their hardware wallets. But yeah, like, I love supporting projects that are, you know, full force and have been created for the people. It's not you know, profit incentive. As we're seeing now lately over the last few months, there's been a lot of new hardware wallets that came out, and one of them, of course, being the Foundation with their Prime, which, oh my God, it goes away and above my head with what it does with replacing Fei. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to say nothing bad about Foundation, but just for me, a signing device should not have so many things on it, because it kills the purpose of a signing device.
Yeah, we're kind of the purists here, I guess. I'm also the guy who dislikes Umbrel, because I'm just saying a Bitcoin node should be a Bitcoin node and the home server should be a home server, but they shouldn't run on the same device. unless you run Bitcoin apps, but please don't run your Nextcloud and your media hosting and all of that on your Bitcoin nodes unless you like problems. Yeah, it's really like that.
Very true.
To touch up on what you said about the NVK camp, it's a very simple concept of his. Everything that is not his product is being bashed to oblivion. Yeah, when he talks about Raspberry Pis, he talks about SeedSigner. We all know that. But I think most people in this space who are serious started to ignore this by now, because when you have a stateless concept that hasn't been there before, except for Spectre DIY who actually invented it, if I recall correct.
Yeah.
Please someone correct me if I don't. if I don't. But if you have this concept, and if you see a company like Blockstream essentially not copying, but using the same concept for their hardware wallet, then tell me again that it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And that's really the end of this discussion, because, SeedSigner has obviously trade-offs, like all of these devices have trade-offs, but for like paranoid crypto anarchists that we are, I think these trade-offs are much more, valuable to risk than landing on a list like Ledger users did.
Oh yeah, well, let's not even mention Ledger. I think
But we have to thank Ledger, because if SeedSigner, the person, never landed on that list, SeedSigner wouldn't have been born. So in a way, it's a good thing.
True. No, what I meant with Ledger, I just find it fascinating that some people in the space that have been around for several years still today use a Ledger with the Ledger Live app, thinking it's the standard of stacking your sats in cold storage, where by now I would think they would have upgraded their security and at least are not using Ledger Live or using Spectre Wallet or Sparrow or something more kind of sovereign in that case. But then the other thing is, which I want to touch upon, and I want to hear your opinion on it, is, and I saw you tweeted this just a couple of hours before we jumped on the pod, there was a discussion about how many hardware wallets are out there. And I find that fascinating. And I still see this myself, when I speak to some people in the space, they still use hot wallets. A lot of them don't have their hardware wallet device. And what do you think the reason is for that? And then my second question would be, how do you think we can improve those numbers going up of people actually withdrawing from hot wallets and exchanges and keeping it in their cold storage? What's your take, Printer?
That's a difficult one, because I'd love to say, okay, we just need to educate them more or something like that. But the thing is, when I came into this space a few years ago, we needed more education badly. Right now, there's like a plethora of Bitcoin podcasts. There is more Bitcoin podcasts and wallet tutorial videos and SeedSigner tutorial videos and cold storage tutorial videos than you could ever consume. There are literally more than you could consume, and people don't fucking care. They just don't. So people lost money on Mt. Gox, people lost money on FTX, and people will lose money on Coinbase when it blows up. Because it must blow up at some point, let's be real. This can't go on forever. And if it blows up, this is going to be gorgeous.
Cheap sats for everybody.
Yeah, I'm here for it, absolutely. But I really think right now we can't really do anything. We can't flip a switch and make hundreds of thousands of people who have Bitcoin lying on Robinhood or whatever stupid app they use to make them withdraw to cold storage, because they don't understand. They just don't understand, and nobody has the time to teach them all. Even if you teach them, and that's the thing, you can teach 20 people and one of them will follow through with it and really withdraw his sats, and that one will feel better and he will sleep better. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So we can just try to make this known to everybody we care about enough so that the people we care about do something about it.
It reminds me of one of my favorite Satoshi quotes with, if you don't understand this, or how does it go? If you don't
believe me or don't get it, correct. I have no time to convince you.
I don't have time to convince you. Sorry, right? Like it's that thing. Like, because this is another reason I launched this and I'm doing this podcast now full time, is kind of I want to help people, educate them on the topic and become more self-sovereign individuals. But then
as you said, like it can be 100 people that listen to this episode, and then just one is going to be like, actually, what Printer and Gigi said makes sense. I'm going to withdraw my sats onto cold storage, and 99 will just like go this year and go out of that one and say, cool episode, and move on. And you can't really force people. What are you going to go around with a gun to their head like, withdraw your sats into your cold storage,
or else
I'll steal them. But no, it's I think but then even not the pain factor, right, of people losing their money in exchanges, like as you said, the MTGOX, the FTX, Quadriga, you name it. There's been several and many more exchanges to go down, including Coinbase. I'm also of the belief that at some point that behemoth is going to come down. And people are going to feel real pain, and they're going to be questioning, why did I not hold it in cold storage? But asking that question after the pitfall is too late. As the saying goes, have the umbrella with you before it rains, not when it starts raining you start looking for an umbrella. And the education aspect, I totally agree with you as well, Printer. When I started my journey in 2017, there wasn't that much education out there. There was maybe two handfuls of podcasts. Of course, Andreas Antonopoulos was my favorite Bitcoin educator at the time. There's been so much content that he was putting out. But now, 8 years later, there's an overflow, and a lot of the education is just fluff. Like it's repetitive, and it's too much of it, for a person to comprehend. This is why actually I'm launching at the end of this month. Probably by the time this episode comes out, it'll already be public. I want to start doing like mentoring classes with people where I do a one-on-one or like group classes where I teach them, and we work together to do it. So instead of you watching a course or listening to an episode, it's about let's do a virtual workshop. Let's set it up. Let's build it. Let's test the transaction, see how it is. Because I think that's the only way you can slowly get people to adopt it, by actually using it. It's the same case of, orange pilling people, telling people about Bitcoin is one thing, but getting them, to open a Lightning wallet and doing that first Lightning transaction. And they're like, wow, like it's real, that kind of similar thing. So, but then again, it's how many people can I do these workshops and this mentoring for, right? It's super limited compared to billions of people that we have. So the question still stands, how do we do it? But, I'm just hopeful that people with time, and the higher the value, the purchasing value of Bitcoin gets, people will be like, this is not anymore a few, thousand $1,000. It's actually a few million. Maybe it makes sense to take, control over it. So
yeah.
I'm hopeful that with time, people will, as the numbers go up, not that, that's the most important thing, but people are still affected by the amount of fiat they could potentially exchange for their stack goes up. They will be like, maybe I won't keep it there, but let's see what happens.
Yeah. For some people, responsibility is really scary too.
True.
Because we've been taught that everything is insured, everything is not in our power. So if the bank loses our money, we'll get it back eventually. That's what we think. That's what like how most people think. True. So I think if you never lost Bitcoin by transacting or doing other stupid shit like me, don't do that, by the way, then you start thinking about this more. You'll have to get burned once.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point there with people comparing it to the bank system, where you're not keeping all of your cash under your pillow, but you have it in a savings account, and someone's taking care of your money and it's safe there. And I think I mentioned this on several episodes. A lot of people, they treat their crypto exchange as their digital assets bank. They're like, oh, it's all there. There's a company behind it. I can easily go into my app and get access to it, and I don't have to worry about it. Until that exchange collapses. And then you're like, oh shit, there's no 100,000 euro insurance on my account. There's nothing I can do about it. So yeah, and I think this also goes even further back to people's lives, to school education. We're never taught about how to handle money. We're not even taught about how money works in the first place. So maybe we're too ambitious here, expecting people to take self-custody of the hardest money that's ever and ever will exist, where people are never taught about the subject. And people outside of our echo chamber have no idea what's really happening in the world, and the real money printer going, they just realize that everything's getting more expensive, and they're not happy about that.
They don't even realize, sorry to interrupt you, but they don't even realize the correlation.
100%.
Like every Christmas dinner, every dinner with normies I had in the last months, I have stopped speaking about Bitcoin. I let them come. And if they ask, I will obviously help them. But I tried orange peeling everyone around me many years ago. So I let that go and was just observing. And yeah, they are noticing that everything gets more expensive, but they still think it's due to Ukraine.
Yeah, always blaming it on someone instead of taking control.
Exactly, due to someone else. Like the European Central Bank is never once mentioned. If you mention like M2 money supply, you're kind of a crazy guy already.
Yeah, but yeah, let's see. I'm hopeful that with time and hopefully the Gen Zs will take a little bit of a different leap, because Gen Zs seem to me like a generation that doesn't like to be governed. They like doing their own thing. So I'm hopeful with time they will lean more to the cypherpunk ideology of, controlling their stuff and being more responsible. But that's yet to see, all we can do is do the good job, do the printing, do the educating. And if people take it, they take it. If not,
do the meetups.
What can we do it? And do the meetups. Yeah, no, for sure. This is another thing. Yeah, meetups is something that, especially pre-COVID, I was also when I was living back in Cyprus, I used to do. So I launched Bitcoin. I was living in Cyprus. I launched Bitcoin Club Cyprus in it was 1st of December 2027, and we used to have weekly, every Wednesday used to be a meetup. We'd get together, talk about Bitcoin and the whole shitcoinery casino, because back then it was all blockchain to me, right? Like in the beginning, we all thought it was one big decentralized party. But yeah, and so many good like connections were met, and so much value was taken out of them, and then COVID came in and slashed everything. But still today, to all the people listening, I highly always preach that go out, find a local meetup. And if you're in an area that doesn't have meetups, be that initiator, be that change that you want to see. Set up a meetup Wednesday, Saturday, whatever it does to you, in a local cafe, anywhere, just and put it out there on your socials. And even if you get just one person, amazing. At least you have someone to interact with. And by doing it, people will join and will find it interesting. But if we're just sitting at home behind keyboards and posting stuff, we're kind of isolating the average person on the street. So that's a good point you brought up.
I'm kind of guilty of that too, because I'm not the most social guy ever. So I'm not going to every meetup, but I was actually also the initiator of our local 21 meetup here in my state.
Like that's a huge community. I had no idea.
Our first, like not the initiator of 21, of course, but of
the
our meetup here in the south of Austria. And our first meetup, we were actually two guys, like two people, quite literally. But it was fun nevertheless. And the meetup is happening semi-regularly, I'd say now. I haven't been to a lot of them, sorry, at this point, but the meetups are still happening. That's the big thing.
That's the most important part.
When you look at the Lightning node count or general adoption count, like in the German-speaking, in the DACH area of Germany, Switzerland, and Austria, the numbers are much higher than anywhere else, and this is all because of 21 and the well-connected plebs here.
Yeah.
So, take note, other countries. Take note.
they should. While other countries are sleeping away, you guys are certainly doing it right, and it's good to lead by example. Yeah, meetups is definitely the way to go. I wanted to bring up another topic. So we mentioned in the beginning with BitAxes, and I see you're very passionate about BitAxes, and you're tinkering constantly with new cases, new iterations. Yeah, what's kind of your take on BitAxes? And I'm pretty confident the listeners of this show are familiar, or at least have seen a BitAx somewhere online. But what's kind of your take? Why are you so passionate about BitAxes?
So I won't go into explaining what the BitAx is, because as you said, most of the people should know by now. I can show you one, like this guy here. Yeah. Essentially, a circuit board with one ASIC chip miner and an ESP32 and a small display and the power barrel, heatsink, and fan. That's pretty much it. I don't know why, but this was the second thing that I have seen and thought this might get really big. This is just a very, very cool concept. Not because of the one ASIC chip, which will probably never find a block. We all know that. but because of it being open source from the start. Because when Scott did that, almost no one knew that, or talked about, maybe they knew, but no one talked about the Bitmain firmware, and all the firmware that all the big mining farms are using is entirely closed source. And I, for one, was shocked when I found out. And then I started to dig deeper. So we found another rabbit hole inside the rabbit hole. I went down there, and then at some point I found out about the proxy pools, like the meme that Scott posted last night. You see, Ant Pool is the big one. And then you have Luxor Pool and Brains Pool, and I don't know all of the names, but they're essentially all just proxies to this one pool. And when you start thinking about that, we're like so close before they might just start a 51% attack because they already have the hash power, just no one is talking about it or admitting it, because it would obviously impact their business. I mean, just imagine someone like Pierre Rochard from Riot speaking out about that, the madness that would ensue. But he did actually post the BitAx, and he showed that he likes it too. So I think he'll be very pleased if we get real big boy miner firmware that's truly open source. And that's where all of this is leading. That's what the higher aim of open source miner is, and of Scott, just to work on a firmware which is working for all miners, which is open source from the start, which doesn't have any shenanigans built in like ASIC boost. If you're into mining for longer, you remember what ASIC boost is and what it did. Let's not go into detail here. But yeah, the beauty about the BitAx itself, to get back to the point, is you spend $150 or $200 or euros or whatever, at best sats for it. And then it's a point of irrational mining, because you'll probably lose, in my case, 15 euros in electricity for running that thing for 1 year. But at the same time, this is something we can all afford. Every one of us can afford it. Most of the people who never thought about running a miner because it chucks thousands of watts, they just can't. But each of them can run a BitAx. And that's the point. If you take every pleb and every one of them runs a BitAx, and let's just say now with the Gamma we have 1 terahash, and then you have hundreds of thousands of plebs, which equals to hundreds of thousands of terahash. And in the end, it's just one of these little ASIC chips that finds the block, also in the big mining farms. There is no difference. It is one single small ASIC chips. Of course, they are higher end in the big mining farms, sure. But I really think BitAx ought to make a difference. If not with the single chip devices, then with all the multi-chip variants that are coming out. And the multi-chip variants are coming out until a certain point is reached. And when that point is reached, it doesn't make sense to build more multi-chip devices, because then we're going to the big miners. And that's where we want to go. And just like make mining open source again and make Bitcoin mining decentralized again. Those are the two goals.
100%. That's how it should have been. That's how it was in the early days, right? When it was still GPU mining, you could just open up your laptop and start mining and contributing hash power. And it must have been nice back in the day getting a 50 Bitcoin block reward from your your Asus $500 computer. Those days are over, but most people getting into Bitcoin today, and when they get onto the topic of mining, they think of these massive warehouses, the marathons of the world, the riots, like with huge industrial scale stuff, and that's kind of I don't want to say it was hijacked. It's all monetary value in it, and corporations go to where the money is. But it killed the way the idea of individual people, an individual pleb running his own node, verifying every transaction, running his own miner, contributing his hash power. And at the end of the day, it's not all about making money. As you said, most probably, well, not most probably, but like 99.9% of BitAx runners will never hit a block, but it's not about hitting the block. It's about contributing your share back and making that network more decentralized and giving it some extra power. And it's a very nice educational tool, to get people to see how things are happening. And, it's well worth it. And, $15 a year is definitely something everybody, especially in Europe, can afford. I mean, just to get a coffee from your local coffee shop will cost you nowadays around €5. So it's like 3 coffees or contributing for a year. It's definitely something well worth it. So yeah, I totally agree. BitAx is something that I'm also excited about. And everybody, once again, listening, if you don't have a BitAx, which probably you don't, but you should, GoBrrr is an excellent place where you can, or if you're outside of Europe, wherever you are in the world, I'm sure if you go to the BitAx website, that they have all regions of the world where you can find local retailers, but definitely do go get yourself a BitAx to start mining at home, as it should have been in the first place.
Absolutely. We just touched back on the hash rate right now, just for a second.
Yeah, of
I
course.
was just opening public pool, so right now we have just on public pool almost 5,000 BitAxes working, a lot of other devices. Obviously, many BitAxes are mining to other pools, are mining to their own nodes, like I am running my own mining pool by now. And only the BitAxes and devices on public pool equal almost 40 petahash.
Wow.
This is insane, because if you just want to take this thought experiment to the next level, like what happens if governments start cracking down on big Bitcoin miners? Like the big companies like Riot and Mara and whatever they all are, if companies crack down and they all go offline, we now have an army of retarded BitAxes who can single-handedly keep the network running.
True. And that would be incredible. I mean, not that it would, but if that would be the case, then that ratio of you actually mining a block with your own little BitAx would go astronomical, because these big Goliath stock warehouses of ASIC miners just going off, the hashing difficulty would plummet.
Absolutely.
But more importantly, once again, it's not about getting the reward. It's about keeping the network safe and keeping it running. As the saying goes,
absolutely.
TikTok next block.
Absolutely not concerned about finding a block. I mean, if I find a block, it's great. I'll take it. Yeah. Thanks. But I'm really concerned about my transaction going through and being validated when I want it to, because that's like, I got into Bitcoin as a medium of exchange.
Yeah.
NGO is nice. I like NGO. Of course, number go up is great. But if I can't send Bitcoin to someone else the moment I want to, then we fail.
Yeah. As you said, medium of exchange, that was the first line in the white paper, peer-to-peer digital cash system. A lot of people nowadays are just treating it as a store of value. Some of the Sailor fanboys, are talking, I'll never sell my Bitcoin. Kind of defeats the purpose. If you're just storing something and you're never going to use it, you're kind of, I want to say killing the network, but like you're going against it, because the whole point of Bitcoin is to be used, and I find it crazy that some people are saying like, oh, I'll never spend my Bitcoin. What are you gonna do? You're gonna pass it down to your kids, which will probably lose the seed phrase. You're essentially donating it to everyone that's donated millions of Bitcoins from the past decade. I'm of the sense of use the Bitcoin for the things that you actually need, not want, not buying the latest gadget. But if you have an expense, and if you are, like in my case, if you're all in, like there is no my fiat stash and my Bitcoin stash, I'm 100%, everything is in BTC, and whatever I need, I slice off a little bit from the top, pay the bills, pay the things that I need to, and just keep accumulating Bitcoin. To me, if I wouldn't spend my Bitcoin, me and my family would actually die, because like we sustain off it. And I'm not saying by any means that people should go full in on a Bitcoin standard, but if you do, like it just doesn't make sense. So what's your take, Printer, on people saying, I'll never sell my Bitcoin? And something that Sailor made very popular since he entered the space for the last 4 years.
I think the hodling never selling meme is much older than Sailor. Obviously, he made it popular. He made it more popular. That's true. But I think that wasn't what he meant. He just made it popular because he needed to convince everybody that MicroStrategy is not going to sell their Bitcoin, which is another story. I don't know much about stocks, and I'll leave it at that.
And I don't want either.
Talk about things you don't understand.
100%.
To me, it obviously doesn't look like a healthy investment right now, but okay. I don't own any stocks. It's not really a problem for me. As you said, I'm really mostly into Bitcoin. There is not much fiat left. Obviously, when you're receiving Bitcoin, when you're running a node and a BTC-based server like I do, and you're having expenses, you're ought to sell Bitcoin at some point or some sats. But I also think that people who say I am holding to give it to my kids, like you stated, that's a perfectly viable thing to do. If you have enough spendable fiat, which is constantly being debased, then by all means spend that. Of course, but maybe you should practice transacting, even if you just consolidate UTXOs and send stuff to yourself. Practice. Because I know of a lot of people who bought years ago and they will have no idea how to send that coin back to an exchange should they need it. Maybe that's a good thing. Yeah, if many people are losing it, then our backs get pumped, I guess. But again, not in it for this. So yeah, I think holding, never selling is absolutely a viable strategy, but you got to know what you want to do. Sure, because at some point your life will be over. And if you can elevate your standard of life, or if you, like, I don't know, are living for rent and want a house or have been saving up for years for a house, then please don't be the meme and spend some corn to live, obviously, because, yeah, that's kind of the point of it all.
100%. Money at the end of the day, it's just a vehicle to fulfill our lives better. And that doesn't mean getting a flashy car, but as you said, as printer, I totally agree. Like if you had this dream and if your family goal is to have a house and you've been saving out for a long time and now you are in a position that you can, but you're like, oh no, but the numbers will go higher. Like decide for yourself. Like if the house will make you happy and you achieve that life goal that you have, by all means go for it, because we never know what the price will be tomorrow. We never know where the top and the bottoms are. So go ahead and do it. Life is scarce. I say life is scarcer than Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has 21 million. You have just one life. Talk about scarcity. It's a one of one. So don't waste that one of one. Live it to your fullest potential. But yeah, this is definitely non-financial advice from Printer and Gigi. I wanted to kind of round up our conversation here. I wanted to also ask you, Printer, what's like an upcoming innovation or project in the Bitcoin space that you're very excited about, which is currently happening?
I'll have to talk about my own project here.
Go ahead.
It's Solarbit, actually. Not sure if you've seen it because it's not out yet. We're working on it. It's still in pretty much, I don't know, pre-alpha stage, or we just entered alpha stage. And what Solarbit will be is a solar tracker, which tracks the sun, generates energy via 2 solar panels, which are moved by 2 motors. It tracks the sun all day, so it makes sure that the panels are always oriented perfectly towards the sun to capture enough energy. And inside of it will run a BitAx.
We're talking about solars on your roof or like a small device?
No, you can. This will be a small device that you can
put in your garden or anywhere.
Put into your garden or your balcony or wherever you want to capture the sun, and it will draw free energy from the skies and feed it to your Bitcoin miner. At least that's the plan.
Amazing.
It's a very elaborate build, and I'm not building that alone. I'm just doing the 3D design.
Amazing. And what's the plan? You want to get this out, of course, this year, right?
Yeah, the ultimate idea was to get it out in Q4 24, which obviously didn't happen for many reasons. But yeah, hopefully by the end of
the GoBrrr shop
by the end of this year.
The GoBrrr shop was very busy last Q4 of last year. I sense, right?
And like always with prototyping, it's kind of hard, especially if you've never built that thing before. And I have to admit, I'm not an engineer. I'm a self-taught card artist. That's what I would call myself. So the much smarter engineers who are involved in this project had to set some things straight many times, because I have to say, I'm used to designing small enclosures, and this thing is big in comparison. So that's a whole new level. But hey, you never stop learning. And it's a really, really fun project. And running a BitAx without needing to plug it in is obviously appealing.
Of course. And then you also save your 15 euros a year. So you're not even spending anything. But it's not about saving the 15 euros, just like it's not about hitting that block. It's about having a kind of self-running mining, utilizing the sun's energy to mine Bitcoin, right? That's the idea behind it.
Yeah, that's the idea. We'll see if we can get it to life, but I'm hopeful.
Let's see. Well, I wish you the best of luck with that. The project sounds very interesting. Definitely, I'll keep my eye on it, and I'll do my fair share of shilling it on my socials to help get some more eyeballs on it. But yeah, Printer, I'd like to thank you so much for taking the time to come on. I thoroughly enjoyed your story and our conversation that we had. It started off a little bit murkier with with shit posting on Europe, but then again, we need to do what we got to do. We can't just say it's all sunny daisies and everything is good. We need to kind of wake up people to start realizing that the clown world is real. But where can we send people to connect with you and support your work, Printer?
Yeah, obviously GoBrrr.me, or just find me on Twitter, Nostr. That's pretty much it.
GoBrrr and Printer, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, there you go. There you have it, guys. After listening to this episode, open up your Nostr client. Hopefully, if not, if you're still not an ostrich, go over to Elon's walled garden of X, find GoBrrr and Printer. Definitely give it a follow, because there's a lot of exciting stuff happening. And if you still don't have a SeedSigner today, then you should for 100%. And GoBrrr is one store where you can get it done. And yeah, once again, thanks for listening. Thanks a lot for coming on. We look forward to hearing from you in the future and having you back on as we progress down our Bitcoin journeys, and wishing you a fantastic start to 2025.
Thanks a lot for having me. It was a lot of fun, and I really hope we can do this again sometime.
Will do. All the best. Speak soon, Printer. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did recording it. I would really appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, and share this episode to help this podcast grow. Thanks for supporting the show, and until next time, stay safe and stack sats.